Chapter 20, Durat City 1. Welcome to the magical world of high-stakes adventuring and highfalutin fashion choices. Picture this, a sweeping field of springtime glory, as our two heroes gallop along a road that could practically double as a runway for aristocratic horse riders. On one side, we've got Karnak, the mage in silk and deerskin, riding his white steed like he's auditioning for the role of noble in need of an impressive wardrobe. With a wand that probably has its own fan club, Karnak's all about showing off that he's richer than a dragon's hoard. Beside him, Barros, who looks like he's been bench pressing dragons in his spare time, rides a more modest brown horse. His monster hide armor and massive sword scream, "I can handle myself," but without looking like he's about to conquer the local village. Barros reminisces. Feels like a blast from the past, doesn't it? We used to dress like we were on a permanent camping trip, even though we could have been living it up. Karnak chuckles. Yeah, crime doesn't pay, but fancy attire does. Besides, it's nice not to be mistaken for a wandering sack of cash. Barros raises an eyebrow. And we haven't been jumped yet. What's up with that? Karnak, with a twinkle of mischief in his eye, explains. I dressed us this way to avoid attracting the wrong kind of attention. Bandits are basically picky eaters. They go for the easy prey, not the could-be an absolute nightmare types. They're a sight to behold. Seasoned travelers with practical, yet pricey outfits, radiating don't mess with us vibes without looking like walking treasure chests. So if we run into trouble? Barros asks. Karnak shrugs. We've got chaos magic and your sword skills. If things get really hairy, we can always resort to necromancy. As the duo rides on, the sprawling city of Durat City emerges on the horizon. This isn't just any city, it's the northern Ustil Kingdom's biggest trading hub, practically a paradise for the more money than sense crowd. Barros, ever the pragmatist, inquires, You think we'll find that necromancer here? Karnak, with the air of someone who's just come up with a brilliant plan, replies, Patience, my friend. We'll use the old school method. Hit up the Adventurers Guild. The Adventurers Guild, originally a gaggle of bounty hunters who thought, hey, why not band together and share intel, has evolved into a behemoth of information brokerage. Now, they're the go-to place for anything from monster hunting to ancient treasure hunts. Back in the day, we had to sift through a lot of rubbish, Karnak recalls with a smirk. Now, we just need to wait for someone else to dig through the junk for us. Barros, reminiscing, adds, those were the days. We were just a couple of adventurers on the run, reinventing ourselves every week. Karnak snorts. Yeah, because running from angry mobs wasn't exactly my idea of a fun pastime. As they settle into the lap of luxury in the finest inn Durat has to offer, the good times roll, rich food, finer wine, and rooms that could double as palaces. But their venture into the local red light district? A bust. Karnak's keen necromancer's eye sees more diseases than potential dates. You know, Karnak muses, perhaps it's time for me to find a good woman, settle down, and live like a proper baron. Barros looks at him, wide-eyed. You thinking of marriage already? Well, I'm a lord now, Karnak says with a grin. Gotta keep up appearances. Their quest, however, is not as smooth. A week in Durat, and they're still sifting through a flood of misinformation about the darkness of the apocalypse. It seems every minor misfortune is blamed on the darkness. Even a dog eating the neighbor's chicken is somehow linked to apocalyptic omens. The Seven Orders did a good job keeping this under wraps, Karnak grumbles. Now it's chaos everywhere. Barros, shaking his head, wonders aloud about Fred's predicament. What kind of trouble did Fred stir up? Karnak dryly observes. Given the mess he's made, it's a miracle he hasn't been caught sooner. With a determined look, Karnak concludes, we need to get ahead of this info storm before it hits the wrong ears. As the night falls over Durat City, our heroes are left hoping that tomorrow brings some actual leads, and not just more apocalyptic overreaction. The following day, Karnak and Barros continued their search, diligently sifting through rumors, gossip, and the occasional nugget of truth. Their patience was wearing thin as they grappled with the flood of inaccurate information plaguing the Adventurers Guild. Their luxurious life in the inn had its perks, the finest food, wine, and leisure, but their goal remained frustratingly out of reach. Karnak, with his characteristic blend of sarcasm and frustration, grumbled, it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack that's also on fire. Barros, ever the practical one, suggested, Maybe we should dig deeper into the guild's archives. They must have something more concrete. Karnak nodded. That's a good idea. Let's see if we can get past the surface-level nonsense and find something useful. At the guild, they met with a rather disheveled clerk who looked like he'd been through a week of endless paperwork. "You're here for more information?" the clerk asked, barely looking up from his piles of documents. "Yes," Karnak replied. "We need to cut through the noise and get to some solid leads on the darkness of the apocalypse." The clerk sighed and pushed a large stack of papers towards them. "Good luck. Most of what we have is just sensationalist drivel. But if you're persistent, you might find something useful." Karnak and Barros spent hours poring over the documents, their patience tested by the sheer volume of irrelevant reports and wild theories. Just when they were about to give up, Barros noticed a pattern in the reports, several mentions of a particular necromancer associated with a series of unexplained disappearances and strange phenomena. "This looks promising," Barros said, pointing to a report. "It mentions a necromancer in the region, and the dates align with some of the disturbances we've heard about." Karnak's eyes lit up with renewed hope. "Finally, some progress. Let's track this lead down." They followed the clues from the reports, which led them to a secluded manor on the outskirts of Derat City. The manor was surrounded by an eerie silence, with only the occasional creak of the old wooden gates breaking the stillness. As they approached, Karnak whispered, "Stay alert. We don't know what we might find inside." The manor's interior was dimly lit, with cobwebs hanging from the corners and dust-covered furniture. They carefully made their way through the house, searching for any sign of the elusive necromancer. In the study, they discovered a hidden compartment containing several ancient tomes and scrolls. One of the scrolls had intricate symbols and dark inscriptions that matched the descriptions of necromantic rituals they had encountered in their research. Karnak's heart raced with excitement. This is it. These documents could lead us to the necromancer we're looking for. Barros nodded in agreement. "We should take these back to the guild and analyze them further." As they left the manor with the scrolls in hand, Karnak couldn't help but feel a sense of triumph. Their patience and persistence had finally paid off. "Looks like we're one step closer to finding the darkness of the apocalypse," he said with a grin. Barros, ever the realist, added, "Let's hope the information in these scrolls leads us to the right place. We still have a long way to go." With renewed determination, Karnak and Barros returned to the Adventurers Guild, ready to delve deeper into their findings. Their journey was far from over, but they were finally on the right track. The darkness of the apocalypse was no longer just a shadowy rumor. It was a tangible goal within their reach. Chapter 21, Derat City. Content warning. The following chapter contains material that may be harmful or traumatizing to some audiences. Domestic abuse. Reader discretion is strongly advised. 10 days had ticked by since Karnak and Barros had rolled into Derat City. Their mornings were as predictable as a soap opera rerun. First stop, the Adventurers Guild. After a quick check-in, they'd set off on their daily gastronomic journey. Talk about priorities. "Welcome, Baron Karnak," Hans chirped with the enthusiasm of someone who had spent way too long behind a reception desk. Yeah, Karnak replied, glancing over the same old requests. "Anything worth diving into?" "Not really," Hans admitted, handing over a stack of papers like they were last week's leftovers. Even Hans could tell these leads were drier than a desert. Barros peered over, frowning at a particular request. "Isn't blaming the darkness of the apocalypse a bit of a stretch? The guy's wife ran off after a few too many drinks. If she had gained the power of darkness, wouldn't she have left him in pieces rather than just packing her bags?" "Yep," Karnak sighed. "Looks like another dead end." Hans, ever the conscientious apprentice, asked, "Should I start filtering out these questionable requests?" "No need," Karnak said. "Even the tiniest bit of intel could be a gem. Keep 'em coming." Karnak had a knack for sniffing out the faintest traces of darkness, something even the top priests struggled with. But so far, his detective skills had led him nowhere. "Looks like today's a bust," Karnak said. Barros, ever the optimist, suggested, "How about we hit up Serral Street? Heard there's a bakery with baguettes that could make a grown man weep." Karnak's eyes lit up like a kid in a candy store. "Lead the way. I'm already drooling." As they made their way out, the lobby erupted with a booming voice that sounded like it belonged to someone who had a lifelong grudge against silence. "How can you not believe me?" the voice roared. "There's an evil necromancer." Karnak and Barros exchanged glances that could only be described as, "Oh, this ought to be good." "Young master," Barros whispered, "did he say necromancer?" "No way," Karnak breathed. "This is just too perfect." The source of the commotion was an ordinary farmer who looked like he'd had a rough couple of days. He claimed to be from Gelpa, a village a day's trek from Derat. "So, let me get this straight," Hans asked, trying to keep his skepticism in check. "A necromancer showed up in your village, and now you're here to report it?" The farmer nodded vigorously. "Exactly. But no one believes me." Other adventurers who had gathered to witness the spectacle exchanged knowing glances. "Another classic," one muttered. "Yup," another agreed. "Sounds like he's already tried the church." The Church of the Seven Goddesses had a dedicated team for dealing with darkness-related incidents, but only if they deemed the threat credible. "So, the Order didn't believe you?" Hans asked. "Exactly," the farmer said, sounding like he'd been wronged by the entire cosmos. One adventurer, showing surprising patience, asked, "Let's hear what happened." The farmer launched into his tale. A mysterious newcomer had taken up residence in an old mansion in the village and was charming all the local maidens, much to the dismay of the local gents. "Even Emily, who promised to marry me, fell for him," the farmer wailed. "And," the adventurers prompted. "And what?" The adventurers blinked, waiting for the punchline. "Wait a minute," one adventurer said, puzzled. "That's it," another asked. The farmer insisted Emily was a devoted and kind woman. She wouldn't fall for some stranger. The story boiled down to a woman swapping sides, which, according to the farmer, was clearly the work of dark powers. One adventurer asked, "What did this man look like?" "Like a gigolo," the farmer gritted out. "How old?" "In his 20s. "Did he take money from them?" "No," the farmer said. "He's got plenty of cash, though I don't know where it came from." The adventurers were dumbfounded. "So let me get this straight," one said. "A young, handsome, rich man is charming women? And that's a problem?" Another scoffed. "If that's dark power, I'm the king of the elves." Barros, who had been eavesdropping, stepped forward. "So, the other villagers are just fine with him? Why come all this way?" The farmer's shoulders drooped. "The villagers are all smitten with him." Barros pressed further. "What's he done?" "Well," the farmer mumbled, "he threw village feasts and helped the sick." So, this mysterious stranger was not just handsome and rich, but also a genuinely nice guy. Hans said, "We can't really act on this. Or would you like to make a personal request?" The farmer's face turned ashen. "I don't have that kind of money." He left the guild with nothing but his jealousy and empty pockets. The adventurers watched him go, sneering. "It's just some poor guy jealous of a rich guy." "Nothing new," another adventurer said. Karnak and Barros exchanged smirks as they left the guild, but once they rounded a corner, their expressions shifted. "Suspicious, isn't it, young master?" Barros murmured. "Very suspicious," Karnak agreed. "That sounds exactly like something you would do," Karnak chuckled. On the surface, it seemed like a mundane story, but scratch just a bit deeper, and there were red flags waving. "If he's so capable, why go for village maidens?" Barros mused. "A real womanizer would target the high society," Karnak agreed. However, there was one thing that made innocent maidens valuable: their souls. Could it be a dark sorcery type? Barros wondered. "That's what I'm thinking," Karnak said. It wasn't out of the question that the stranger was a regular guy with a soft spot for village maidens. But it was worth investigating. "Gelpa village, right?" Karnak asked. "Let's go." "Since everyone else dismissed it, we should be able to check it out without much hassle," Barros said. Although the journey was supposed to take a day on foot, Karnak and Barros reached Gelpa village in half a day on horseback. From a hill overlooking the village, Karnak assessed the scene. It looked like your average rural setup. Karnak grinned. "We hit the jackpot." "What do you see?" Barros asked. Karnak used his chaos power to reveal the hidden web of black lines connecting everything in the village. "Oh," Barros said, impressed. "A barrier." It was a dark power web, so well hidden that even top priests might miss it. Karnak was pleased to see some competent necromancy for once. "Not bad," Karnak said. "This guy's got skills." Barros asked, "And is this the darkness of the apocalypse?" "We'll have to catch him to be sure," Karnak replied. Only by delving into the darkness could its true nature be known. Even during the Fred incident, Karnak hadn't been able to confirm the darkness until he directly absorbed it. So it could just be an ordinary necromancer, Barrows said. That's a possibility, Karnak agreed. They had to investigate either way. With no prying eyes or meddling adventurers, they could head straight to the mansion and take care of business. From the barrier, he seems skilled but not a real threat, Karnak declared. Let's get rid of him quickly. Just then, they noticed someone approaching from the foot of the hill. Huh? Someone's coming, Barrows said. Karnak was taken aback. A high-ranking priest, he thought, recognizing the significant holy power approaching. What's a cleric of this caliber doing in a village like this? A young man in green robes and holding an oak staff came into view. He dashed towards them. "Excuse me," he called out. The young priest, catching his breath, exclaimed, "You're the adventurers investigating the strange occurrences in this village, right? What luck! I was about to check this place myself." Barrows, still trying to process this, asked cautiously, "And you are?" The priest stammered, "Oh, my apologies. I'm Alice, a priest of the Order of the Earth." "Ah, a priest of the Earth Order," Barrows said. "I'm Barrows, a knight of House Zestrad, and this is our lord, Baron Karnak." At the mention of Baron, Alice's eyes widened. "You're not adventurers?" "Why would you think that?" Karnak asked, feigning ignorance. "Well, you look quite capable," Alice said, realizing his mistake. The two had dressed to appear as capable as possible, and Alice had mistaken them for adventurers. "So you're not here to investigate?" Alice asked, a hint of disappointment in his voice. Barrows sent a magic message to Karnak. "What now?" Communicating with glances, Barrows sent a magic message to Karnak. What now? Communicating with glances wasn't going to cut it forever. Karnak had set up a secret communication system with Barrows using chaos magic. "I don't think we can say we were just passing by at this point, young master." "Agreed. This priest seems pretty set on this village. They needed a strategic response. We didn't come specifically to investigate," Karnak said smoothly. "We were just passing through and heard some strange stories, so we decided to take a look." "I see." Alice's face lit up as if he'd hit the jackpot. "Then could you lend me your strength? It's for a sacred duty, for the goddess." Though he had a good idea what Alice was about to say, Karnak asked with feigned curiosity, "What's this sacred duty?" Alice glanced around, then whispered, "There's a chance that an evil necromancer is active in this village." Karnak's eyebrows shot up. "Oh, and what's your plan?" "I was going to investigate, but it's always better with extra hands," Alice said, looking relieved. "The Order suspects that this necromancer might be involved in something larger. We need to be cautious." Karnak nodded, a smirk playing on his lips. "Very well, lead the way." Alice led them down the hill, chatter bubbling up about the necromancer's evil deeds. Karnak and Barrows listened, with Karnak occasionally flashing a knowing grin at Barrows. Once they arrived at the village, the air felt thick with secrecy. Alice began to conduct his investigation, but Karnak and Barrows took a more discreet approach, shadowing the priest while keeping their own agenda in sight. The mansion in question loomed ahead. Karnak was confident this would be straightforward, but they had to keep their wits about them. Whatever the truth, it was clear the situation was more complex than it initially appeared. As night fell, Karnak and Barrows prepared to confront the potential necromancer. The village, shrouded in darkness, seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the confrontation to unfold. And so, our intrepid duo ventured forth into the heart of the mystery, ready to uncover the truth, whatever it might be.